Hey guys, it's Derek from Derek Chai Media, and today I'm just going to quickly talk to you about one of the things that as new small business entrepreneurs we got to deal with is how to deal with a potentially difficult client and what you do when your gut feeling tells you that it may be the type of client that you want to avoid and you're not sure whether it's the right decision. And one of the problems when you start off any business is that money is everything. We don't often have much capital, and every client we get is something that adds to our coffers and adds to the money we make, and it makes us feel good about ourselves and makes us feel like we're successful. We make that mistake that when we do that is we accept clients who are potentially something that we don't really want to do, people who we don't particularly want to work with, and in the worst case scenario it could even be something that damages our reputation and our brand. So what do you do in this situation? And I'm going to give you just a little bit of a snippet of an example that I have. I'm not going to give you any specific details because it wouldn't be fair on the client, but just to cut a long story short, it's just basically something that I had a gut feeling about when I got a call about something that he wanted us to do. It just didn't feel right. It just felt like it was going to be a little bit of trouble. It just felt like we weren't meshing and we weren't sharing the ideas, and he didn't have a good understanding of what my business was. So ultimately, after a couple of stressful evenings and thinking about it, I kindly decided just to email him and said that we're not the right fit, and I wished him all the best. There was no bad blood or animosity about it. It was just a matter of just saying to him that I didn't feel like we were a good fit. I wished him all the best, and that what he wanted would be achieved by someone else. And I didn't leave any doubt that maybe I wanted to do it, because I really didn't. And from the start of this video, I was going to talk to you about gut feeling and how important that is. It just didn't feel right. When I first got the call, it wasn't really something that we normally offer, but I said I'd have a look to see what we could do. It was a request actually to edit some photos. But the strange request was that it wasn't photos that I had taken, it was something that was taken on an iPhone, and he needed it to be made into an album, and the pictures were kind of a bit blurry, they weren't very well composed, they were out of focus, and they were all very low resolution, and he actually wanted to blow it up into A4 size photos to print for an album, and I didn't think it was appropriate. And it's just one of those situations where you've got to speak up, because it's your reputation, it's the reputation of your business on the line, and if you agree to do something and you can't come through with it, it's on you, not him. And the last thing you want to do is, even though you didn't take the picture, it's going to be really easily misconstrued if he was to post something on social media saying, look, this picture was edited by Derek Chai Photography, and if it was a terrible picture, it would be on you, even though you could say all you like, I didn't take the picture, but you edited it, you got paid to edit this photo. So that's something to be a little bit cautious of. Couple of other things that beginner entrepreneurs always make the mistake of is being available 24/7. And whilst I'm perfectly happy to take calls about with an initial inquiry, for example, if a bride was to ring me and said she wanted me to shoot the wedding, that would be perfectly fine. But you have to draw the line at your contactability, and I don't think it's appropriate or reasonable for you to be contacted on weekends and after hours unless it's something urgent, and to have repeated phone calls and left messages and making you feel guilty that you're not returning the calls is not something that I would put up with. Apart from the initial consultation, unless it's urgent, I do not take phone inquiries. I do not respond to text messages for basic non-urgent matters. Obviously it's fine if you're going to meet them for a photo shoot and they text you and say they're going to be late, that's certainly okay. But I don't take detailed inquiries via text message, and all my communication usually goes through email. In this day and age, it doesn't really matter whether you're 2 streets away or 2 continents away. You can always talk to each other via email, and that's the way I like to deal. And another red flag that I discovered with this particular potential client is the fact that he wanted to drop his photos off at my house. And I do not have a photographic studio at this point, and I do not allow clients to come to my house, especially clients who I'm not familiar with. And that's just dangerous. It's almost kind of a little bit stalkerish, as a matter of fact, and I certainly don't want that to be a norm. And you've got to think about your own personal privacy and also your safety. And it's certainly not something that I permit. As I said, unless I know the clients real well, for example, if they're friends of mine or something like that, then that's perfectly fine. But not for some stranger who you've not ever dealt anything with and never had a business running with. So there are a couple of other things that just comes to mind when I turn this guy down. I don't think that this whole situation, basically I just felt that this whole situation felt wrong, and I was able to nip that in the bud before any contracts were signed, before any expectations were met. So hopefully nothing bad came of it. And my advice to you as a beginning entrepreneur is just to be very cautious with the clients that you take up, especially if it sounds a little bit sort of iffy, and if your gut tells you not to do it, you should really kind of consider carefully and listen to your gut a little bit, because if it doesn't seem right to start with, you're going to have lingering doubts. And for the sake of the small amount of money you might make, if it's going to make your life into a miserable hell, if it's going to be problematic, if there's any doubts that potentially the client won't pay, or it's going to be demanding and expecting revision after revision without financial compensation, or if they just don't understand what it is that they want. I'm one of those guys who, when I take up a client, I kind of like them to have some knowledge of photography. They don't have to be experts at shooting, but they have to have some idea what makes a good photo and what doesn't. People who say you're a photographer if you've got a great camera, or you can't be a good photographer if you shoot on an iPhone, they clearly don't know anything about photography, and they're not the clients that I want necessarily to be part of my business. I want people who like to have fun. I like people who appreciate fine photography, and I just like people in general who are happy and outgoing and willing to compromise a little bit and have a little bit of fun along the way. And that's the way I plan to do business. And if you're one of those clients, then I'd love to hear from you. But if you're somebody who is constantly haggling about price, constantly demanding about small changes, ringing and contacting people at inappropriate times, late in the evening or weekends, and just generally difficult to deal with, then I would prefer that you kind of even go somewhere else, because I don't think it's going to work out for us. And you've got to be honest up front. You can't just lead him on thinking, oh, it's going to be money, so I'm just going to lead him on and see, because it'll come back and bite you. And on the subject of money too, I think a lot of us, when we start off, we get into this situation where we're worried that if we turn down clients, we're turning down money, and who knows what's going to happen. We may not get an inquiry for another month. But you just got to consider this whole concept of money versus happiness. And if you're not going to be unhappy, if you're going to be unhappy when you take the shoot, you're not going to do a great job anyway, and that's not going to help your reputation at all. And one of the things is, with photography, it's all about word of mouth. And if you do a crap job because you've just accepted it purely for the money, it's going to come back and get back to you anyway. On the other hand, if you're worried that by turning down a job or saying no to someone, that they're going to badmouth you on social media or anything like that, I wouldn't worry, because there's only one person and your work will speak for itself. And if there's any evidence, if you've got a decent portfolio of good work, I think that your prospective clients aren't going to care about the one customer who potentially will lead you a bad review, especially a customer who never engaged in your service in the first place. So there's my little 2 cents on what it's like to deal with difficult clients. The best thing, as I said, is try and nip it in the bud and avoid having them in the first place, because it never works out. People who promise you that if you shoot or if you take up this job for $50, that next time when they need something, they're going to come up with $10,000 for you, it'll never happen. And it's purely just a little ploy to get you into their little web. So I would just leave them well alone and just do what you love. You're going to eventually come across clients who you really want to work with, and it's just a matter of time. It's basically a story of who can hold his breath longest wins, and it's just a matter of just staying true to your principles, doing the right thing, being happy, because that's what life is all about, and hopefully you'll get the clients that you've always dreamed of. So if you've enjoyed this video, I'm planning to make a whole heap of tips on starting and maintaining a photography business, other photography tips and other tips on social media in general. And if you have any comments, I'd love to hear from you using the comments down below. And if you have any inquiries or suggestions about future videos, just hit me up. And in the meantime, hope you guys have a great evening, and I'll catch up with you soon. And go out and enjoy your photography, and don't let anyone else determine what your style is, because you're your own person. And that's it. Catch you later.